This is Mary Maxine Likes to Talk with me, Mary Maxine. In this episode, I want to play a game. The call is coming from inside the house. 7 days. Read. Because Mary Maxine likes to talk about horror movies. Alrighty, folks. Horror. First, we'll start off with my absolute most favorite horror movie ever, which is called The Descent. It is a movie about these 5 friends who go caving after this horrific accident happens to one of their friends, and a year later they're like, you know what? You know what will heal grieving mother? A trip into a cave. And so they all go caving, and their leader, if you will, Juno, is like, no, we're going to this cave. And then it turns out they didn't go to that cave. They're in a cave that's never been explored before, and shit happens. And it's the best movie ever. Shauna McDonald plays the main character, Sarah. Natalie Mendoza plays Juno. And they have quite the chemistry, if you will. It's a fantastic movie. I highly recommend it. There's also The Descent 2, which is still pretty good. It's a little bit of a stretch. And there's 2 endings to the original, just The Descent, the first movie. And they made 2 endings because Americans found the original British ending to be, quote unquote, too bleak. So I definitely recommend watching the original British ending. It's the better ending of the 2. I'm also a huge fan of the Saw series. Number 3 is the best. I love Saw 3. But the first 3, really, could have been a complete story right there. And then they did, of course, continue on. And I like them all. They're all fun in their own little way, except for Spiral. When Chris Rock decided to come out with a Saw movie and was like, you know what? I'm going to use this as a vehicle for some really crappy stand-up. It was boring. It was predictable. I guessed the twist right at the very moment somebody wasn't on screen, and yet whatever. Anyways, not great. Saw 10, however, which just came out, was fantastic. They brought back Tobin Bell. They brought back Shawnee Smith. Love them both, who play Jigsaw and Amanda respectively. It had fun traps. It felt like an actual Saw movie as opposed to Spiral, which was just a steaming pile of crap. So it was nice to get back to the original idea and feeling and atmosphere of Saw, and there is going to be a Saw 11 that is coming out. I believe it's coming out this September, so pretty jazzed for that. Hopefully they'll do it around Halloween as they used to. That was kind of their tradition. I also love the Hostel movies. Now I know these are considered kind of quote unquote gore porn movies, but there's actually kind of some real life scariness to them. Like when I saw Saw 3, I really thought that I was going to be next. Whereas in Hostel and stuff, people travel, it's legit. It's kind of like Taken. It's a possibility that you might get sold into some, super intense bloodhound club. Oh, what are they called? It's like the Hunters Club. Anyways, Eli Roth had done he's the director of the Hostel movies, and he did a bunch of research into tourists going missing and basically the actual premise of Hostel, which is rich people paying money to kill people. Yeah, it's a pretty simple premise, and I think they do a really good job. I love them, and you can actually, this is kind of a secret. It's not. You can watch Hostel 1 and 2 on YouTube. They're just on there. Just Google it. Well, YouTube it. GoogleTube it. I was never really into the Freddy and Michael Jason slasher movies. I appreciate how they are classics. Absolutely. John Carpenter, genius. Jamie Lee Curtis, Scream Queen, best of all time. But I just never really got into those. Scream was good. Scream was a pretty good slasher. I do like that series. And I remember when Scream came out, it was around 1996. I'm pulling this out. I'm pretty sure it was 96 because I don't know. Maybe it did. But my sister saw it, and she was definitely too young to see it in 1996. And she woke up the house, and Mom and Dad had to go console her. And then not too long after that, I saw I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the exact same thing happened where they had to come console me because my closet was open just a crack, and I was absolutely sure that the fisherman guy from I Know What You Did Last Summer was in my closet, and I cried a lot. I also saw Arachnophobia too young, and that is probably what contributes to my arachnophobia. It's an intense movie, but it's always great to note that John Goodman is in Arachnophobia. Not just Jeff Daniels, but John Goodman. He plays an exterminator, and he brings a little bit of levity to an otherwise absolutely horrific situation. Another one of my favorite double duo of movies is the Wolf Creek pair. There might be a Wolf Creek 3, but that's kind of up in the air from what I understand. But Wolf Creek, check that out. Australian movies, and also kind of real because it is actually the bad guy in it. His name's Mick Taylor, and he's based on Ivan Milat, who was a real serial killer in Australia who killed backpackers. He just didn't like backpackers being in his country, and they portray that through Mick Taylor. And Ivan Milat was eventually caught, tried, and he spent his lifetime in jail. He died in jail not too long ago. And it was a big deal in Australia when he died. There's also, there is a show about Wolf Creek. I only saw like a couple episodes, and those couple episodes were really good. I just couldn't really get all of the episodes because it's an Australian show, but also highly recommend that. Another pretty realistic horror movie that I found, especially because I grew up in a small town, is the Wrong Turn series. You never know when you're going to run into a family of mutant hillbillies. It happens. And Eliza Dushku is in the first one. She's fantastic. I highly recommend watching these movies as well. There's like 9 of them now. But again, the first 2 are really good. And the second one has Henry Rollins in it, and he is hard as F. I won't say it, but he's great. So we just call him Half. Oh, and I love the Final Destination series. There's 5 of those, and they are coming out with Final Destination 6, but those are the movies where there's like a Rube Goldberg machine of death that comes after the people who survived an otherwise unsurvivable kind of situation, and it's like death is coming for them. I love these movies, and most of them are filmed in Vancouver, and in the Final Destination 5, you can actually watch the Lionsgate Bridge crumble into the ocean. That's the main disaster in Final Destination 5. And you can see they're filming from Stanley Park and from West Vancouver, but you can't see Canada Place. They had to be very strategic in their filming angles, but very cool. What else? Oh man, zombie movies like 28 Days Later. I love 28 Days Later. Cillian Murphy, amazing in that. He wasn't in 28 Weeks Later, but Rose Byrne and Jeremy Renner are in 28 Weeks Later. And then word on the street is they're working on 28 Years Later, and Cillian Murphy may come back. He does survive the first 28 Days Later. And these aren't spoilers because if you haven't seen these movies by now, that's your fault. That's on you. But I'm also a big fan of The Walking Dead, of course, too. So I watched most of that until Rick left, and then I still watched a bit after that, and I am totally into the new series with Rick and Michonne. I just have to pay for AMC, so I'm going to do that. But also, they did put the first episode on YouTube, so I might go watch that and see if they have the second episode up too. So, pretty excited about that. Also, never really got into the George A. Romero zombie movies. I have seen like Dawn of the Dead. Was that him? He was Day of the Dead. Night of the Living Dead? He was some time of the day Living Dead. And yeah, they were just okay for me. I think I'm more into watching people get ripped apart. It intrigues me. I do love a good apocalypse movie, though. The End of the World movies, like 2012, 28 Days, not 28 Days Later, The Day After Tomorrow. That's what I was thinking. Well, 28 Days Later is an apocalypse movie for England anyways. I also love, any monster movies are a good time, like Godzilla or, The Host is a really great horror movie I'm pretty sure it was done by Bong Joon-ho, the guy who did Parasite. If you haven't seen Parasite, well, you're dumb. Because that's an amazing movie that is a ride from start to finish. You do not know where it's going to end. If you haven't seen it, see it. That's Parasite. But then watch The Host because it's a really fun kind of like creature feature. I also love Armageddon, which is technically not a horror movie, But when you think about it, Earth really is just a shooting gallery for the universe, and just firing meteors and asteroids and comets, and not comets, I think those burn up in the atmosphere, but Armageddon, great, horrible movie. Just ask the dinosaurs. Oh wait, you can't, because asteroids hit them and killed them. So they haven't seen Armageddon, and you can't ask them. You can ask me though, and it's great. So though it's not a horror movie, but Stephen King's novels, big fan, have read quite a few of those. I read The Stand, Misery. That's not quite a few, is it? Why can't I think of any other Stephen King novels I've read? Anyways, The Stand is also about the end of the world, which is caused by a virus, called Captain Trips. And a lot of people were comparing COVID to Captain Trips, and Stephen King was like, no, Captain Trips had a 99% kill rate, and it was fictional, so had nothing to do with COVID. And Stephen King even put out like a little tweet about it. But Stephen King has my absolute most favorite quote in the world, and people ask him, how do you write the way you do? And he goes, I have the mind of a child in a jar on my desk. Gross! It's so funny to me because it's what it is. Stephen King. The king of horror novels. And some movies, like Misery, the movie is great. A little different than the book. They change a few things and they take out a few things. Like a guy gets run over with a lawnmower in the book. That's fantastic. And instead of being hobbled, he gets his feet totally cut off by an axe in the novel and then cauterized. It's fantastic. I highly recommend these books and movies. I'm going to read Carrie. I've seen the movie Carrie a couple of times. I haven't read Carrie yet. It's pretty short, considering Stephen King's ability to go into detail. But the end of Carrie, I watched it with my sister. I was probably too young to watch Carrie too, but the very end, when the hand pops out of the ground and your eyes screamed. I definitely screamed on that one. Ooh, we just watched Poltergeist, but we watched the remake of it. Not as great. I think I need to watch the classic version, because as much as I love a good remake... What was I talking about? Oh, Poltergeist. As much as I love a good remake, that one wasn't it. Like the remake of The Hills Have Eyes, much better than the original Hills Have Eyes. I was also just thinking of another one. The Ring. I was thinking about The Ring. 7 Days. Scared the crap out of me. I saw that definitely around the time it came out. Absolutely horrifying. I remember staying up late, and then one night, a movie ended or whatever, I had a little VHS in, and it went to snow on the screen, which I woke up to and was like, I'm about to die. Samara's coming for me, even though my phone never rang. Doesn't matter. I watched The Ring, which to me felt like, well, I may as well have watched Samara's movie, and she's going to come crawling out of my TV all wet and ruin the carpet. Ugh. Especially in that one scene when she comes out of the TV and she's soaking wet, she comes out onto wood floor. I'm just saying that was not very considerate. And one more fun fact about most of our favorite movies, like a lot of the classics like Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, those are all actually, those three for sure anyways, the villains are based on a real life person called Ed Gein, who was literally like Bates in that he had his mother upstairs, like her rotting corpse. He held onto it. He had a lampshade made out of human skin. He had a belt that had nipples as the fasteners. When the police showed up, they found a human tongue in a pan. There was a lady, it's horrific. Anyways, he was basically also making a women's suit. So there you have Buffalo Bill, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He wears a face mask made of human skin, and Psycho. Check him out. Very, very interesting to read about Ed Gein and how he didn't really kill people, but he was a grave robber, which, I don't know, it's a fine line, isn't it? It's a fine line. Either way, nuts. Alrighty, folks. Well, that's all for this episode of Mary Maxine Likes to Talk about horror movies. Let me know in the comments what your favorite horror movie is or isn't. Mary Maxine Likes to Talk. Available for your ear holes on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, marymaxine.ca, and Podcast Addict. Stay safe out there, everybody.